Why, hello everyone. Welcome to the trial grounds.
Hey.
Are these the trial grounds? Because we are here. Hi everyone. Welcome to the
Hey.
Dead by Daylight, the board game launch stream. It's me, your host, Dwight Fairfield. No, I'm kidding. It's me, Marco DeSantos, also known as the Mechanic Critic, and with me is the president of Level 99 Games himself and the designer of this game, Brad Talton.
You're putting me on the spot, Marco, because I didn't have time to get dressed up. I just have my t-shirt. That's it.
You know, here's my
I'm
question.
I'm really being shown up by this low budget cosplay.
It's Asian Dwight? Heck yeah. You know what? In my heart, Dwight is Asian. He's overworked, tired, and an office guy. You know, like I connect to him on an emotional level.
I guess so. What did they say Dwight's job was? Did he work at like a video store? I can't remember.
I don't remember. Somebody like remember to remind me what Dwight's job is.
Oh.
Everybody in chat, tell me which survivor Brad looks like. I mean, like that's really the question here. Which survivor does Brad look like with his current outfit? See, I told him he looked a little bit like Jake because he had like an oversized jacket. But you know, maybe Jeff. Maybe you look like a Jeff.
Maybe with if my beard were a bit longer. If I hadn't gotten a shave and a haircut today, I might look like Jeff right now.
Sorry, chat. What do you mean Asian Jim from The Office? Jim is Asian.
Well, yeah, so we're here to talk about Dead by Daylight, the board game, and answer some of your questions about it. So this game went up on Kickstarter today. We've been designing and developing it for the last, I guess it's been about 10 months now. We started
almost
in
a year,
June last year. Yeah.
Everybody says you look like Ace.
Ace, really?
Yeah. Wait. Get a hat. Get a hat. Sunglasses.
I don't have a baseball cap on me, unfortunately.
Dang.
Yeah, I guess I can pull off Ace for better or worse. Oh dear, that wasn't what I wanted. You could have at least given me like David or something.
Somebody said you look like David with glasses.
Okay, there. I look like David without glasses.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know, Ace or David aside, he worked in a literary company, but had a lot of small jobs. That sounds like an overworked man to me. Emotionally, me and Dwight are brothers.
Marco. All right. I think you pull it off. I think you pull it off pretty well.
Everybody like my pens? All right. Hey, Brad, for a quick review, maybe some people don't know who we are and are like, you know, I'm coming here from Dead by Daylight. I don't know who these Level 99 people are. Can you give us a little rundown of, you know, what the company's about? Who are you? Who am I?
Yeah, so Level 99 Games, we make board games for a video game generation. That's our catchphrase, and that's what we try to do. And we build a lot of games that translate the best of video games into tabletop. So we've built games that are based on fighting games. We've built games that are based on bullet hells. We've built games that are based on like gacha games, and we've built games that are based on like SRPGs, and all of these being standalone tabletop card game or board game experiences. So it's a different flavor of board game than you might recognize if you've just played what's on the shelf at Target. But you know, the shelf at Target's getting more diverse all the time, and so we've been at this for about 10 years. Our best known games are probably the Millennium Blades, which is a board game about a group of friends that play a collectible card game, which is called Millennium Blades.
You know how I describe Millennium Blades? I describe it's like Monopoly, but instead of real estate, it's Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Instead of real estate, you're dealing trading cards.
Right. You're paying money to buy fake in-game booster packs that you open for rares, and you deck build with those, right?
Yeah. Well, so to give a little more background, we've done some licensed projects with Capcom. We've worked with Arc System Works. So we've done licenses with BlazBlue and Street Fighter, Under Night. Shovel Knight, a couple different ones. And so, you know, we reached out to, first off, in our office, a lot of us are big fans of Dead by Daylight,
Oh yeah.
and so we reached out to Behavior and said, "Hey, can we do a Dead by Daylight board game?" And they're like, "Actually, we've been looking for someone to do a Dead by Daylight game." So they like it was a great match, and and we're really excited to have been able to work on this project. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work. We turned this around really fast. Like everybody was working full time on this project for quite a long time, and we
Right.
really they really pulled it together quickly.
Yeah, for a lot of us, it was a passion project, right? Like,
Yeah, it was days and nights, playing and testing and rebuilding, and yeah. So
Yeah.
it came out really good, and it's been like Behavior got involved with the game, and tested it out. We've played it with the Fog Whisperers. We played it with a bunch of our own internal testers, and and it's been great experiences all the way down. And so I'm really confident that it's gonna be a great time on your table as well when you get a chance to play it.
Right. I'm gonna be so excited for everybody to get their hands on this. So Brad, who are you in relation to this project, and who am I in relation to this project? Let's give people a little lowdown on that.
So, yeah, I'm Brad Talton, the lead designer for the Dead by Daylight board game. And so I did all of the, would you say, like concept and rules building and databases. So kind of like what the high level, the vision, the gameplay is going to be. Marco and another member of our team, Kier, were the developers for this game. And what they do is they take that vision and these ideas and this rule set, and they do the balance work, and they get all the language right, and they make sure, manage all the content. So it's all of the, the nitty gritty details that Marco and Kier worked on.
Right.
And so that same Marco is here before you to talk about the development of the game.
Yeah. So, any questions about the design, Brad will answer. Any questions about balance or specific implementation, I'll be able to answer. So between the two of us, with our powers combined, like in the video game, if we work together,
we may survive.
We may
as
survive
friends.
this stream as friends.
Yes.
Don't worry, Brad. We have comms, so we're fine, right?
We do have comms.
Yeah, we're
but
talking.
I think there's a legion of killer questions out there just waiting to
All right.
to
Let's
hook
answer
us.
some questions here. So feel free to ask questions. We'll be trying to answer them as best as we can. And so let's get started here. How does it... I'm sorry I'm late, but how does it feel to have it funded in 7 to 10 hours? Somebody says 10-hour fully funded is a great achievement, by the way. Congratulations.
Thanks. It's pretty exciting. I knew that that Dead by Daylight was going to be a big deal. There were a lot of people who were really excited about it, but I'm still really elated to see that it all came together so quickly, that we funded on day one. So so it's really great. It's really great, and
It feels like
I don't know what to say about
the blood, sweat, and tears. They paid off.
Yes, it's all coming true. All my dreams are coming true. Right here on the stream.
Yeah.
But it's really wonderful to have the game come together, and I think this is a great confirmation of our confidence in the brand of Dead by Daylight and the game that we've put together, and in all of the hard work that went on, because there's a lot of work that went on in the background of this project.
Right.
And so it feels very validating to have it funded on the first day.
That's amazing. Somebody's asking, how many times...
How about you, Marco?
Oh, how do I feel?
How do you feel?
I mean, Brad,
You're the exuberant one here.
I mean, I'm this is very out of Dwight character, but I'm pogging out of my mind, man. Right? Like, you gotta understand, we put a lot of effort into this game. We put a lot of thought into it. We tried to make it like the best value that you can get. Like, I think it's going to be a perfect storm of amazing. It's going to get a lot of people really excited. And, before I became a developer in Level 99 Games, one of my main things was community management and being, like, excited and getting people excited for games. And, that's really my passion, is to get people to play games. It's my childhood dream to make a game that somebody will play and will make them feel good for a day. Right? Like, that's it. A simple dream. And hopefully, a lot of our old games have done that. And hopefully, Dead by Daylight, the board game, will be that game for more people. because I want more people to be able to
I
experience
think
the joy.
I think you aim too low, Marco, because this game is going to make a lot of people experience joy a lot of times. So
Or maybe
I say that with
experience
confidence.
the trials of death and being sacrificed.
You know, there's a certain what do you say?
Je ne sais quoi.
No, I say a certain joy in despair.
I
For all you
see.
Dark Souls players out there.
Nah,
Right?
just for all of you killer players out there, Cheska. Cheska.
Oh no.
Cough, cough. So,
No,
how many times?
Cheska is our team member who plays Wraith. Is Cheska rank 1 now?
I don't.
I think
I
she's
don't
like a
know.
gold 1 Wraith now.
I mean, Cheska,
Anyway.
Cheska, like quite literally just takes moments to make us suffer. So it's
Yeah.
okay. How many times can a survivor be hooked before they die? Technically, in this game, Brad, how many?
You could, in theory, be hooked 8 times in this game. So the way that it works is when a survivor is hooked, they contribute progress towards the killer's victory.
Right.
So as the killer, your goal is to summon the entity and devour everyone. And so each time you hook somebody, you're making progress towards that.
Right.
So unlike in the game where individual players get eliminated, in the board game, the survivors are sharing this track, the killer's sacrifice track, and if it fills up, they all die together. So each time you're on a hook, the killer gets 1 progress towards that summoning, and then at the after 8 progress, the game ends.
Right.
So it is possible that you get off and get hooked again 7 times, but it's very unlikely. I don't think that'll ever happen unless
the killer is
someone's
actually
really tunneling you hard.
I mean, but the killer is actually incentivized to target other survivors, right? Because they get the
Yeah.
bonus for hooking a survivor the first time.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah, the first time you hook each individual survivor, you get a bonus. So the killer can actually win with just 4 hooks if they get all 4 characters once. If they hook all 4 survivors 1 time each, that'll also trigger a victory.
And obviously, the game is designed in such a way that if you're on a hook, your team or you basically never don't take turns, right? Because you're hooked. And that's really important.
Yeah, your team loses a turn.
Yeah, because there's 4 of you, but if one of you gets hooked, there's only 3 of you, right? And that means, like, there's even less and less turns. So somebody's really incentivized to save you because...
Yeah. If you're on the hook for more than, like, 2 turns, it's basically game at that point.
Yeah, the killer's won, basically.
Because the survivors get 4 turns to the killer's, the killer's 2 per round. Yeah, like 2.5-ish. But the survivors have twice as much work to do among them. And so there's really this economy of turns. And if you are, strategic killers may try to tunnel characters they haven't hit yet for that bonus, or they may try to, to combo to get 2 weakened characters on the hook. There's really a lot of strategy to which characters you're going to go after as a killer.
Right. So, this is a really, really important question, and I really like this one. Why is hooking a survivor called a sacrifice in the board game? A sacrifice represents a kill, whereas a hook represents a hook. So why do you call it that?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is my department here. As part of development,
Yeah, go ahead.
a lot of writing the rules is about clarity and is about making sure that people understand how the game works. Because unlike a video game, right? If a person doesn't understand how a board game works, they can't play it. Because there's no AI, there's no code that executes the game for you. In the video game, for example, even if you don't fully understand how a perk works, the game will happen, the game will work, because there's code in the background running that perk. Even if you don't know how to use it effectively, the game still understands how it works and makes it work. So why do we say sacrifice instead of hook? It's very simple. Because there is a component in the game called a hook. So if you have a sentence that says, if a survivor is hooked on a hook, you may sabotage the hook in order to unhook them, you can see how it becomes a problem, right? Because you would say the word hook 7 times in a single sentence, and people...
It starts to become ambiguous, yeah.
Right. Do they mean hook the action of hooking someone? Or hook as in the miniature that I put the thing on? Or do they mean hook the other thing? Do they mean that Robin Williams movie? I don't know, right? This is why we try to...
Yeah, and there's one other aspect to this too, which is that the sacrifice action as a whole is not just hooking, it's not just carrying, it's not just like adding progress to the sacrifice track, but it's a whole sequence of actions that you do as one
Yeah, it's everything.
continuous block. Yeah,
Right.
and so when you attack a character that's already wounded, you actually pick them up, you do the carry, you put them on the hook, and you get progress towards your victory condition, and all that happens in as one big action. And so
Right.
we want a special name for that action that's not just hooking, because like Marco said, that's overloaded. We don't want to use the same word in more than one place in the box.
Correct. All right. Sorry, I'm still trying to read some of the questions here. People are asking a lot of them.
Well, then you can only pick the good questions.
Okay. Okay. Tell us about the board. Lots of comments about how the board looks and how it's implemented. I know you must have read them. I think this is like the elephant in the room that I want to address now so that we can move on from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brad.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking about this actually, because I knew there was going to be some questions. This is actually, something that that we talked about with behavior when we showed them the final board, and they said, well, people are gonna have this issue with the board, and what are you going to say? And we tried a lot of different boards in the game, and actually in the early stages of the game, we did have a very granular sort of board that looked like a real stage layout, and
With like hexes and grids and stuff.
yeah, with real space. But as the game mechanics evolved, and we were working to find the fun in this game, and to iterate on that as tightly as possible, we found that the board with its spaces was getting in the way. And I resisted for a long time changing that. But in the end, it was what we had to do. And so when you're on a board that has a lot of detailed space, like a lot of like a D&D tactile map.
Right, or a
right?
Fire Emblem
And
map or something, right?
Yeah. And you want to like move 3 spaces, right? That means that there is this cross of spaces you can go to, right? Now, imagine that you're making that move, but you're invisible. And so you write down on your paper, or you hide somehow, or you somehow obscure your position on that board, right? And then imagine I'm now the player chasing you, trying to find you. I have to look at all the places you could have gone, figure out my most efficient search route among those spaces, and then actually go through and execute, or say, oh, well, is he faking me out and I want to go the other and do the less optimal routes. That whole calculation sequence is basically the same as, well, did he go blue or did he go red? And we just boiled the game down to that level so that you could make that snap decision, did I think he went blue or red, rather than doing this whole calculation just to arrive at that little decision. So it was part of the mandate to make the game a 45-minute game. If we did detailed granular movement, it would be, you're just shooting in the dark as the killer, and it's just not as much fun, and it's very calculation intensive.
This is the level 99 games, like, bread and butter, right? Like, we're all about giving you the experience of the game, not the granularity of it, right?
Yeah, we don't want to mirror so much the precise, like, oh, you can loop around pallets. Like, that's not really, that's an element of the game, but what that really is you like going back on a path into the killer's space, and they didn't see you coming and see you go out. Abstractly, it's the same kind of idea. Right. But as far as the visual design of the board, I was looking at a visual board that was going to be easy to read from across the table. You can tell exactly where things are, and it has spaces that are big enough to hold all the components that they need to at a time, which could be a generator mini, a hook mini, 4 survivors, and a killer mini. So all that has to fit in one space. And we went with a look that was inspired by the archives and by the Blood Web, not so much by the literal top-down maps. And if you look at, I don't know, I felt like the Dead by Daylight concept art made for a better board, because that's another aspect of working with a license, is that you don't get to create a lot of new assets. if we had an artist come in and draw a new map from the top down or create a new visual asset, that would have been a much more involved process.
Right.
And so for those various reasons, limited asset pool, making the game work with the most straightforward rule set possible, and getting a visual design that was reminiscent of this particular element of Dead by Daylight. Those three together helped inform the board choice. And I do have like a whole blog coming out where I show some of the old boards and talk about how the hidden movement evolved. Yeah, that's coming out in a few weeks. So if you've read the Making of Dead by Daylight blog that I put up today, you'll see some of the old boards in there, and you saw some of them in the update post as well.
All right.
Anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but
if you want more info,
the point is that it's a very involved decision. There's a lot of factors.
Yeah, we put a lot of
it's
thought
into it. It's not just one answer.
Yeah, Brad and I have gone on debates about this board for a few, and I think it's been forged in the fires of playability and in playability and
it is a board that you can play this game on, and it will play this game, and it plays this game very well.
Right, that is the intent of this game. Playability is a really big factor in what we did. Everything.
Yes.
Yeah, like this is a game that's meant to, that you bring out on your Friday nights. It's not going to be a game that you buy and then never touch again because
some people are saying like, well, will it fit on my shelf? And like, I didn't design it to fit on your shelf. I designed it to play on your table. That's the goal, right? This is a game that can hit the table and play in set up, teach, play, breakdown in an hour. It's a game that you can play, that you will play, and that you'll want to play because it's quick and it's fun and there's a lot of replayability to it.
Right.
So you're going to have to play this game a lot of times to see everything that's in here. I won't try and calculate the possibilities.
Don't calculate the possibilities. There's also the prop placement, right? Because even if the map isn't modular tiles, the props themselves are randomized between it, right? So.
Yeah, and that's how we early on we thought about doing some modular maps, but really the shape of the map, there are a few things about the shape of the map that matter, but they're not that many things. What really matters is what props show up where. And so the randomization of the props inside the map is really what adds character to your play. Mm-hmm. Are the exit doors all on the same side? Or, so a map like McMillan Estate, which we have in the as I think it's shown in several places on the Kickstarter.
Right. It's
actually got 2 columns to it, and one half of the map is really isolated from the other half of the map, and
only
so
connected by a small
the distribution, hallway. Yeah, a small hallway, and so the distribution of the exit doors in there, of the hooks in there, of the generators and how the crows are set up so that you can loop, it makes a big difference to the gameplay. And that's all you need a board that's got 2 chambers in it, and that generates a really distinct experience from one like Ormond where everything connects back to the central chalet.
Right.
So,
anyway. We could talk more about the maps, but one of my favorite maps.
I'm rambling.
Yeah, one of my favorite maps is the one where there's a center rotunda, right? Where there's 4 rooms.
The asylum. Yeah,
the asylum. It's literally just 4 rooms, and it's literally just a one-way circular path in the middle.
Yeah, they're all connected by the same color, so you can't run out of the asylum. You can only run through it.
Right.
You have to go turn to turn in order to move through the middle.
Right. So there's a roundabout in the center, and it gets really crazy trying to chase people through that thing as the killer, because you can't double green, right? Because you only have 1 green card.
Right.
So
unless you're Blight.
Unless you're Blight, of course, because Blight has double of everything. So are all the perks made to be similar to the video game, or are there some that are dedicated to make it in a total different idea from the original? It's a 50-50, right, Brad?
I would say that it's probably more like 25-75, because there are a lot of. I mean, the video game is a different medium, right? It's real time, it's real space, so we can try and capture the spirit of a perk, but you can't really capture the mechanics of it, and you don't really want to, because raising something saying you can move 80% further in a board game is not something you want to calculate on the fly.
Right. Makes sense.
So we have a perk like like botany knowledge that lets Claudette heal faster. In the board game, this just lets Claudette do extra heal checks on her turn, like so she can take extra heal actions. Normally, you move and you get one action. Claudette can move and do an action, and then also attempt to heal somebody, and and that comes at a higher risk. But that's how we kind of made that work. There's some other more abstract ones, like what's a good example of something more abstract?
Anything that involves seeing an aura, right? Like anything that involves seeing
like
an
aura sight.
Yeah. So a lot of these perks are usually in the video game, like you get to see some aura based on some condition, or get to see the killer's aura, get to see a player's aura, or something like that. Obviously, we don't have auras in the video game. So what it usually is you get to see their movement card, right? So that you can predict where they're going, or you could block off their movement cards. I believe one of the perks is like, the killer reveals a movement card, and if anybody's going that path, they just don't. Instead, they get stuck where they are, right? That's kind of us trying to represent, oh, the killer saw your aura and now they're cutting you off, right? That's why you can't move, right?
One that I think is really really good is like a good example. So Nia has a perk called Urban Evasion,
right?
And so in the board game, what this does, I think in the video game you can crouch and move fast. You can move faster while crouching. That's not really something we could ever implement in the board game because players move one space at a time, and Meg already has sprint burst to move 2 spaces. So instead, what we did was we gave Nia the ability to move through breakable walls on the board.
Right.
So it's not connected necessarily to what she does in the video game, but it is in theme with her character,
and so it fits the feeling, right?
Yeah. So what we tried to do is we said, what is the character about when we can, and then what is the real feel of the perk. And especially when we get to like killer powers, we had to do kind of similar things because there's a lot of killers that are basically just wound people at range, right? And in the video game, that's fun because they all have different skill sets that they have to use. Like Huntress and Trickster feel very different, but we don't. And Deathslinger, of course, is very different too. But we don't have that same luxury in a board game where moves are discrete. You make a move and you have all the time in the world to make your turn. So there's no skill ceiling. Skill ceiling is 0. You instead have to find other ways to abstract out these powers and to make them interesting and to make them feel different from one another. So yeah. Anyway, awesome. We'll talk more about killer powers later, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let's not get into the nitty gritty of the killer powers. That's okay. Is there an element of surprise on what killer is chosen? Yes and no. Right?
I think that's up to your group. Right. If you want to surprise each other with what characters you pick, I think it's kind of fun to show the killer first and then let the survivors pick who they're gonna go as up against a killer. But really, it's it's up to you and what you want to do.
Sometimes, if you want an element of surprise, there are actual game modes where you can kind of like secretly pick your loadouts, and then when the game starts, everybody goes like, "Haha, here's my loadout!" Right? So if you want that element of surprise, perks really play a big part in how the characters play out, right? Like you could be playing the Trapper, but with a different set of perks, the Trapper will play entirely differently, right? So like Trapper is usually an area control bruiser kind of killer who like who puts the traps on the board and slowly walks towards you as you get boxed in. But you could give the Trapper more mobility perks and then suddenly turn him into like pseudo blight if you wanted.
Yeah, you give him something like what is it? Blight has infectious fright, and these other talents let you move other people around, and so those can really change how you want to play. And we talked in our server a bit. Someone asked us, how does like a perk like Insidious work? And Insidious works that whenever you attack a survivor without moving, basically when you play your wait card as the killer,
right.
You can pick someone up directly. And so, what good is that? Nobody's going to run into my space if they know I'm playing Insidious. Well, you have characters like Spirit that can manipulate at range. You have characters like Wraith that can just pop up behind you. There's other ways that you can use these powers that really change things. Deathslinger will pull you into his space, and Blight can manipulate your movement.
Huntress,
Clown,
I think, like has the ability
Huntress
to just stop you from moving wholesale, right? So like, why even bother like pulling them into your space? Just make them not leave.
Right. So there's a lot of tools, and the killers really change the way each perk works, and the survivors do too. So one thing that is a little more subtle with the perks is that each character, if you look at the character boards that we've posted, you'll see that there's a purple perk and 2 green perks on each board. The purple perk is actually unique to the character. It doesn't appear in the deck. It's not teachable. So there's a deck of perks, and those are the ones that you can customize your characters with. But the only way to get botany knowledge is to play as Claudette. The only way to get leadership is to play as Dwight. And I think it's Prove Thyself.
I think it's Prove Thyself. I think for like David, it's like No Mither. No Mither.
Yeah. It's always the really good one. It's always the really good one. But you have to play the
survivor usually gets their best perk as their signature perk, right? Because they gotta have that.
The killers too.
Yeah, I mean, for the killers, they already have their powers, right? Like.
There's your power is the best perk. Some killers are actually more perk based, like Oni and like Nurse is more perk based, where they like most of their power budget is actually in having really strong perks, and the power actually just supports that. And that's another way that we differentiated characters.
Right.
But. Yeah, I guess we should take more questions.
Right.
We're starting to
what was your goal for the win rate for each team in testing? Hey, that's a me question. 50-50.
Yeah, go ahead.
The goal is a 50-50% win rate between killers and survivors. And
even though there's 4 survivors on the survivor team?
Because the survivors all win as a team. So it's technically one team against another team, and you want, in a team versus team game, for each team to have a 50% win rate, right? So there you go. So all the survivors either lose together or win together. And somebody asked a question of like, the survivors like exit the exit gates one at a time. I believe we talked a little bit about this on the blogs. So if you want more info on that, talk about it, read the blog. But long story short, once they open the gates, all the survivors just skedaddle out and they win together.
Yeah. We did try the other way though. And there were some games where a player would like grab the key on turn 1 and they'd go out the hatch, and then they would sit there and watch the rest of us play for 30 minutes, and they didn't have a great time. So we took that out.
Okay.
Unlike the video game, you can't just queue in again when you lose. Yeah, so we have to all win or lose together. We want everyone to be involved down to the last turn.
Right. We wanted everyone to be invested in the game. We wanted because
Well, in early versions, we did have a run sequence where once you opened the gates, every person could run to the gates and escape. But what we found in testing was that at that point, it's pretty obvious who gets out. You could actually just kind of look at the board and do the math and see who's going to get out and who's not. So we said, well, let's just cut that part out, and we'll just say when it's decisive, the game ends.
Right.
Once the end game is obvious, then the game is over.
Yeah, I think that's the really important part here is that, again, it's for playability, right? We cut away everything that doesn't make the game fun and just makes the game drag along, right? It's a board game, right? Like, it's not as, like you said, when, as a survivor, if you get out and all your friends are still stuck there for 30 minutes, unlike in the video game, you can't just queue up another game, right?
Yeah.
You gotta wait.
Yeah, and that's a difference in board game design is that you really have to trim really aggressively everything that doesn't support your core premise.
Right.
So board game has to be much more centrally focused on what it's doing than a video game does.
Yeah, that's what all good board games boil down to, is understanding what's the fun and focusing on that, because you can't afford anything else, right?
Iterating that as much as you can. Yeah. Finding that fun and then just like turning the fun crank as many times as you can before the hour is up.
So somebody's asking, have you considered screens to hide the perks to add an extra suspense? That's just a lot of like information that you'd have to track. So it's not very viable for like a board game where there's like 4 other characters in there and you have to consider everybody's perks and everything. But I mean, what's stopping you from making your own screens? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that players could play. We at Level 99, we do a lot of competitive games. And so we're really used to the idea that both sides will have full information against the other,
Right.
and we'll use that information fully. Like we designed Exceed and BattleCon and these games where you have a lot of counterplay.
Right.
And so we're comfortable with that. And I think that most people, when they play the game, will just, ignore the other side's perks and even ignore their friends' perks. And when a perk happens, it's like, oh, cool, great.
I didn't know
and
you
then
could do
experienced players will get into it, right, and start to learn what they can do and what we got to watch out for. You'll probably figure out what the killer's perks are by the end of the game because they'll really bite you if you don't.
They're really important.
And yeah, but that's about as far as it needs to go.
Right.
And then, but what we can tell you and what Marco can tell you is that even if you play like real seriously, the game holds up to that.
Right.
You can try and manage every perk and it'll balance out.
The game is balanced in such a way that even on the most basic level, most of the time you'll get an even-ish matchup, and played at the highest level. Like, if you truly try to optimize this game, it's still going to be around a 50-50% win rate. So, so long as both sides are of similar skill level, you'll get around an even win rate. Now, if one side is better than the other side, that's where, we can't help you there.
Now, when you're playing the Blood Web mode, which is where you have your deck of perks, you pick whatever you want, or you're playing Devout, where you just get dealt a limited hand of perks and you get to build your character. Then we select secretly and we reveal our characters at the same time. But during the game, it's not a secret of what we're playing against each other.
What your perks are, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, this is a really interesting question for you. Was the add-on mechanic ever considered for the game? Is there a possibility for it to be added in the far future, like stuff to alter the killer powers and items?
Yeah, so I actually did envision add-ons as a second set of killer powers, like B-sides for all the killer powers, and we did some concept design, but given the timeline for the game, we knew we weren't going to have time to properly test them and guarantee that they were all good, and so if we couldn't guarantee they were all good, I didn't want to put them in. Right. So. If we get to do any further content for this game, it'll be one of the first things that goes back in. Right. Will be those alternate killer powers, which are the add-ons, and maybe I can do something for survivors too, because I would like to have the survivors maybe have like a B-side for their signature perk or something, something to give them a little more play.
Yeah, or like iridescent killers or something, right? Iridescent, what that is.
Yeah, iridescent killers were the alternate killer powers.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it'd be cool to do some things for the survivors too.
Right.
But anyway, but yes, it was imagined, but we didn't have the time to put it into this particular print of the game. But a future, we still have it in our pocket. It just has more development work to go before we could release it.
Right. Somebody in chat is asking, and maybe they missed the earlier answer, is that would there be a way to randomize the maps, like changing exploring conditions or objective layouts? Yes. There is a way to randomize the maps. It's all in the rulebook, actually. So if you read the rulebook, you actually shuffle all the prop tiles together, and they get randomly distributed across the map. So the layout will not be the same from game to game. The killers and survivors may not be same from game to game, so you'll get a lot of replayability there. Brad, somebody asked, what is your favorite killer?
My favorite killer?
Let's not board game here, because I know your answer for video game. It's going to be Trickster. Like, whatever. Yeah,
Trickster, so I played it a lot in the video game. In the board game, I have really enjoyed the Oni.
Oh, dude.
This is a really cool character. So Oni's ability... So first off, let me explain how perks work in this game. So you have these blood points, and anything in the game that makes like a sound, like when a player runs by crows or they fail a skill check on a generator or whatever, if it makes sound in the game, the way that we modeled that is we give the killer blood points.
Which is the resource used to pay for perks.
Yeah. Right. It lets them use their perks more often, and if they have 4 blood points, they can spend those to take an extra turn.
Right.
So it also gives them Bloodlust, which is the killers go fast passive in the video game. So you have that. So getting blood points makes you go like take more turns and use better perks. So what the Oni has is he has a bunch of perks that are really expensive and really powerful. And what his ability is that when he uses Blood Bond, every wounded survivor and every hex totem around him generates a blood point, and he sucks it up. So he can get like 5 or 6 blood points with one use of this power. And then he can use those to bank extra turns or to use these really powerful perks that can overwhelm the survivors. So it's almost like you're playing this economy game against the Oni. You have to clear the hex totems. You have to heal your friends, because if you don't, this guy is going to generate so many extra turn economies that he's just going to crush you.
Right.
And so we didn't give the Oni like run faster or hit harder type abilities like he has in the video game, because other killers do that stuff. Instead, we modeled the blood, the blood bond ability in. I said blood bond, but that's the twins ability. I'm talking about the.
It's his berserk form. Somebody give me the specific name. I'm losing it.
No, the one where he absorbs the blood orbs. Right. I'm sorry. The one where he absorbs the blood orbs. That.
Right.
That ability we modeled as giving him a lot of extra economy. Right. Which lets him move faster and hit you more times. No, so I guess it actually plays out.
It actually plays out like how he does in the video game, because once you get enough blood points, you just take extra turns every round. You just use all your perks every round. Like, it's basically you go Super Saiyan. Like, it's great.
Yeah, sure.
You basically go. Guess who my favorite board game killer is?
Okay, I'm gonna say your favorite killer is probably the Hillbilly.
Oh, Hillbilly's pretty fun. I think he's in my top 3. Hillbilly's a pretty basic guy, but because he just chainsaws people around, and sometimes you're in the mood for just being a basic chainsaw man. But my favorite killer is actually the Death Slinger. Come here, kid.
Death Slinger. Oh, okay. That was going to be my next guess. Yeah, yes, Death Slinger, he's pretty fun.
Yeah, Death Slinger's pretty fun. For people who don't know, Death Slinger has the Redeemer, which allows him to essentially grab people from far away.
It's the spear rifle that you can harpoon someone and reel them in.
Right. In the board game, he can basically do that. A lot of killer powers are actually the ability to move or attack people from far away. None of them are the ability to sacrifice or hook people from far away, right? Death Slinger is the only killer who can do that. So he can literally just oh, I missed them because they went into another room. No worries. And then you just pull them in. Of course, it has to be a bit fair. In the video game, you have juking, right? But you don't have juking here because it's a board game.
Right.
So actually what happens is that the survivor that the Death Slinger is targeting and the Death Slinger basically play a game of like bluffing at each other. So he kind of plays pseudo bluff poker with the opponent.
It's interesting too, because so he bluffs with the cards remaining in his hands.
Right. So he goes like, I'm doing this card. Guess it, right? He goes like, I'm doing
this card.
But if he's
on his like first or second or third card, that changes, right? If he's on his third card, there's only 2 in his hand. If he's on his second card, there's 3 in his hand. And if he's on his first card, he's got all 4. So the less he's moved when he uses this ability, actually the more dangerous it is.
Yeah, the more that's actually a really cool way that we implemented his ability. Like, the fact that he has to aim, right? So the less he's moved on a turn, the easier it is to hook someone with the Redeemer. But if you've moved around a lot, you don't have a lot of time to aim, so you basically shoot from the hip and you miss more likely. So, this was a way that we tried to implement that. So there you go. Those are our favorite killers in the board game. Somebody is asking, and this has been asked many times, I know they come unpainted. Is there an option for us to get it painted? We're willing to pay extra money.
So there are services where you can get minis professionally painted. And it's decently affordable, but we don't endorse any of those services, and we don't have we're not going to have an option to do painted minis through the project. But you can certainly get them painted through a third-party service, and it's not that expensive.
Right.
There are 46 minis in the collector's edition. For those who are curious, I'm pretty sure it's 46.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I wait until retail to save on shipping then? Brad, what do you think?
Yeah. If it's going to be the price on Kickstarter is the same as the price at retail. So if you are in a place where you're pretty sure the game's going to be available at retail, or you decide you want to get it on some third-party site like Cool Stuff Inc. or whatnot, sure, you could wait. The retail edition is going to be in print, for as long as we can keep it in print.
Right, but not the collector's
and our distributor, edition. Well, to finish that thought, our distributor is Asmodee North America in the US, and we've got other distributors in other regions. So you should be able to find it pretty much anywhere fine board games are sold. Now, the flip side of that is the collector's edition, and that is what we would call direct exclusive. So we're not saying it's only going to be on Kickstarter, but it's not going to stores, and it's not going to Amazon, and it's not going to to online sellers. It's only going to be available through this Kickstarter and then through us while supplies last. Right. So we're going to print what we need for this project, and then we're going to print a couple extras so that we have enough, like a short supply. And when that's done, it's done. And after the project, right now it's 99 on Kickstarter. It's 129 at MSRP, and that's what it'll be listed at on our web store.
Right. So if you want all of it, you should back now. You have like 20 something days left, right? So,
Yeah, so a lot of people are asking, like, what are the Kickstarter exclusives? The collector's edition is the Kickstarter exclusives, effectively. Like, yes, you'll be able to get it from us, but it's not going into retail. That's the exclusive, premium content is what is in the collector's edition, that whole box.
Right. Because they were not shown yet. Yeah. They're going to be shown as the days go by. So you'll have to see them.
Which the extra.
Yeah, like
what?
Like the minis for like Blight and the twins and
Yeah, the last few. So a lot of those minis well, let's say a lot, but the survivors are actually all done. We just haven't updated the graphic yet. The killers are being detailed now, and we're getting those at a rate of about 1 to 1.5 every day. So they're finishing up fairly quickly.
Right. Somebody is asking, so the game is practically done with maybe some minor changes. Yeah, that's the reason why we're able to put that October delivery date, because the game is practically done.
If we're, and I don't know if you saw the video by Quackalope, but that's a factory prototype. That's the last stage before we go to offset printing, to mass production. So we are really at the gate to start mass production for this game. The game is at the factory, ready to start printing.
Right. Somebody asked a really good question. How do the hook minis work?
Yeah, so each of the survivors has a little hole in their back, and the hook has this kind of a hook shape, and you can take the survivor and just pop it on.
Right. Will there be enough space that even after I paint both the hook and the mini that I can hook them on properly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you might have to do a little bit of filing. Like, if you're the kind of person who's painting miniatures, you can absolutely make it. It's not going to be a problem for you to make that work.
Sweet.
The paint adds a little bit of depth, but then you just file it down to make the hook fit, and it's fine.
Right. Okay, somebody is asking. Sorry. I lost it here. I lost. Are there going to be daily reveals, Brad? Are there going to be daily reveals? That's it.
Yeah, so we're gonna do every day we're doing some kind of feature. We are going to do, so we're not doing like new content every day, because we're putting it all up front. Like, this is all the stuff. And we wanted to put our best, put everything up in front of you so that so you can decide that you want the game and not be wondering, well, are they going to do what I want or not? Is this killer coming out? We want to be real upfront about everything that's in the box and not keep you guessing.
Right. So let's.
What we are going to do is deep dive into each character.
Yes, correct. So if you want to learn more about how they play, you want to learn more about the specifics, how their powers are done, what perks they got, well, wait for the updates. That's where we'll answer those questions. So in line with that transparency.
We'll be doing some of the other things, like we'll be talking about the maps in detail and what their features are, and we're talking about how perks work and how items work, and those kind of details as well.
Right.
So every day there'll be a topic of the day, and we'll tell you more detailed information about what is in the box and a big up close shot of the character miniatures, etc. So you'll get to see everything in great detail as the project goes on.
And speaking of which, as in line with us being transparent, a lot of questions have been about like what's in the box. Will there be anything else? Upcoming expansions or etc. What's on the Kickstarter is what it is, right? We're not hiding anything.
Yeah.
We want you to back this game because we've put in the most amount of value and bang for your buck that we can already. So.
Yeah. The thing about reveals and about stretch goals is that stretch goals aren't extra things that we put into a game. They're extra things that we take out of the game. Like, we don't make up stretch goals when we hit a certain funding. We would have to create content and then decide not to do it if we don't hit this funding. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to do everything that we wanted to do. We wanted to make the absolute best possible Dead by Daylight, the board game, with no compromises. And stretch goals would have been a compromise. We wouldn't have been able to, we would have had to like say, oh, well, if we didn't get enough money, we won't do the Trickster. And I didn't want to do that. I'm like, no, I want the Trickster. So we're going to do everything.
We're going to put everything that we can into the box.
Yeah. And so that's why there's not stretch goals, because we did everything we wanted to. And there's nothing that we left out of this box. The other thing about it is that if we had stretch goals, we wouldn't be able to do that October delivery because we would have to finalize more content post-project. The game would not be able to be complete right now the way it is.
There's a lot of Kickstarter projects. Like a big thing about Kickstarter projects is that people always expect games to be delayed by years. And it's because of stuff like that where, it's either one of the two things, right? You either pre-make everything and then choose not to give the customers the biggest value for their box because some arbitrary goal wasn't met, which is not good for the customer, or you choose to delay the game months and months and months and months because you reached a bunch of stretch goals you weren't expecting to reach, and now you have to and you have to develop an entirely separate board game essentially.
I have done that one a couple times. Yeah,
we've done it, and we've learned from our mistakes, right? We don't want to do that.
Yeah, what we've learned is that it's good to get a game, deliver it, like get a game complete, deliver it quickly, and then let its popularity guide you to the next expansion. So the stretch goal is let's sell, 40, 50,000 copies of Dead by Daylight, and then we'll get to do a second and a third printing. And when we get to a second and third printing, we're gonna do more content. So that's really where the more content will live, is it'll live in the future, like in future expansions that we get, because this project was successful. It's not just going to be one and done. We want to keep this game around for years and years and years.
Right.
And I think that's a key difference. But I feel like I'm getting a bit political comparing it to.
Yeah. Let's just move
like
on.
The industry, some of the industry practices versus what we're doing.
Right. This is just us speaking from our personal experience, right? Because we've had to do both sides of that spectrum, and it hasn't felt great either way, right?
Yeah.
We're not making a judgment on other people. We've done these kinds of things ourselves, right? And we've realized that we want people to buy our games because we're honest with them and because we want them to have a good experience. That's it, right? That's our value proposition.
Yeah, this is an all-in minis game for $99, which is really an incredible value if you compare it to the other mini Kickstarter board games out there, and especially the video game Kickstarters. Some of the full rides for other games out there are ridiculous. But this is a game that you could get. You could even give it as a gift. It's priced in such a great way, and it's a ton of value. I'm talking too hard. Let's go on to more questions.
How do survivors get unhooked in this game, Brad?
There's two ways. One is that another survivor saves you. The other one is that you were lucky enough to draw slippery meat as your perk at the start of the game, and somehow got a bunch of blood points on your hands to use it.
Right.
But those are the two ways. Somebody comes to save you, and somebody will come to save you, because if they don't save you in 3 turns, your whole team loses the game. So we did really extensive testing on the saving mechanics, and that's what we found works. We needed to make the choice to save somebody. It's not an if, it's a how. Like, it's
Right.
not, should we save this person? We have to save them. How are we going to do it without also getting caught?
Right.
And so, yeah, so camping was a big problem in the early versions of the game, actually, because if you stand under hook, when people get unhooked, they're obviously there. So much like in the way we made sacrifice a compound action where you pick people up and carry them to the hook and hook them, we made rescuing kind of a compound action where you get someone off the hook and then you both run away. So as a killer, you're not trying to predict will they unhook because we know they're going to unhook. You're trying to predict where will they scatter to after they unhook.
Right. So you're
And
trying to chase
that's
them again, right? It's
yeah, you're trying to restart the chase, or rather to cut them off
right.
almost.
Right. Um, Here's a really interesting question, and I think this is more for me. How does the difficulty scale from 5 players to 3? So this is a really interesting question because this is something Brad and I had to work on together because Brad had to design the rules for it, and I had to basically tell him that some rules don't work if we change the player count, right? So the way this works is that the ideal is that every person controls one character, right? One person controls the killer, 4 different people control 4 different survivors. But of course, there are modes for less player counts, up to down to 3. And every time you reduce a player, you don't actually change the number of characters in the game. So, for example, in 4-player, 1 person would therefore have to play 2 survivors. And in 3-player, 2 separate people would have to play 2 separate survivors each for a total of 4. Of course, Brad, this creates a certain problem, right?
Right, because coordination between the survivors is the problem. What we call in game design, there's there's a kind of game called a coordination game, and it's where you're trying to work together with your allies if you have imperfect communication. And that's the result, right? I can't say where I'm going to go because the killer's sitting right across the table from me. Right. So, but I need to work together with my allies. And that game of coordination is something you can only have when there's 2 minds working on the same problem with imperfect communication.
Right.
One player can't simulate it. So, so we did some changes, and I guess Mark will go into those to raise the difficulty slightly when you're controlling 2 players versus 1.
Right. So when you're controlling 2 survivors, you actually don't get more cards. You still have the same 4 movement cards that you would have as 1 survivor. This means that the movement options for your 2 survivors are super limited. For example, if you need Dwight and Meg to both take the yellow path, you can't, because you only have 1 yellow card. So you have to choose which one of them gets the yellow card. And that kinda simulates the coordination aspect, right? It's trying to it's essentially like handicapping you for the benefit you get of perfect coordination between those 2 survivors. So there you go. That's how the difficulty is scaled. It actually makes it harder for the survivors to do their thing exactly because they get a super big buff.
Survivors really want to stay in one part of the board and loop it so that they can hit the generators in that section multiple times, and that's very hard to do when your hand is limited in any way at all.
At all. Period. Right. Okay. Let's just look at some more questions here. We're kind of cooling down on the stream, so if you have final questions, get them in now. Brad and I will try to answer them before we end. I was told once that we get a Kickstarter email for the pledge manager that we can add or edit our pledges. Can I order extra copies of the game? So a lot of these questions that I'm seeing here are actually questions that are answered on our FAQ. This specific one is also answered on our FAQ, so check out the FAQ. But for the benefit
please do. Josh spent a lot of time polishing up this FAQ just for you. So those questions are answered, but short answer, yes, you can. But there are weight limits to shipping. So, once you go over a certain amount, the shipping will go up quite a bit.
Right.
So, just don't check out blindly when you do that. Watch your shipping total.
Right. Somebody said, will this live stream be uploaded? So it's on YouTube, which means that on this same link that you've clicked on to get to this stream, that's where the archive will be uploaded. So you don't have to worry about this going away. It'll stay up there for as long as we want, for as long as it will be. After the stream is done, can you make chapters for each question? I kind of missed my question. Apparently, I didn't get. Sorry, that's just. There's too many questions that were answered. Like if somebody wants to go in and make those chapters, I'll try to implement it into the video, but we have other work to do. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we've got to do every day for this project, so I don't think we can take too much time.
Dwight sounds like a yellow path kind of guy. I mean, yellow paths in the board game are actually vaults, so they're all the one way paths, right? So Dwight would be the kind of guy to just jump through a window and never go back. He speaks to me on that level. Okay, this is a really interesting question, Brad. If I buy multiple copies of the game, can I have 4 Davids in the game?
So, when you buy a board game, you own that board game, and you can do anything you want with that board game, and nobody can tell you no.
That's fair.
And that's the real beauty of board games.
I love it. Yeah. It's your game. In Level 19 Games, this is what we say, right? It's our game, but once you buy it and it's in your hands, it's your game. So, if you wanna have four Davids, I mean, who are we to tell you no? If you do it in the comfort of your own home with your friends, right? So long as everybody at the table is in agreement.
Yeah.
But
so I guess I make no promises about what you'll get out of this. Okay. But you absolutely can do anything. Like you can, sure. And I think so like we had 2-player mode at one point, and we just we felt that it wasn't consistently good. Like we didn't want anybody to play their first game at 2-player. And so we said, well, if we put 2 on the box, people are going to open the box and think they can play 2. So we're just going to take it out. We don't want anybody to get confused. We don't want anybody to have a first experience that's not optimal. So we're gonna pull that out. But you could very easily house rule 2-player back into this game.
Right.
It's just that we don't recommend it as a play experience for the average player.
Right. Again, and it goes back to our
because you have to manage 12 perks as a survivor. It's a bit too much for most people.
Not just 12 perks, right? But you have to manage the movement for everyone. You have to it's look, I tested this game at that player count, and I would say that I'm one of the better players of this game because it's my job to be. Even I get overwhelmed by it, and it's.
But you might invent a cool 2-player variant and share it on Board Game Geek, and it becomes the thing. So
it becomes cool.
That's part of what's cool about these games is that you can really find what find that play it your way.
Right. So people are asking, are there board game do we get anything in the video game if we back the board game? If you look at the Twitter for Dead by Daylight, the video game, they have a special code that they're doing with us to celebrate the announcement and launch of the Kickstarter. So that's it. That's what you get. You get a code.
There might be some other thing that happens later, but it's not going to be like a pack-in code or anything. It won't be something that's the video game may celebrate the board game in some other way in the future. We don't know. Right. But it's not going to be like a limited exclusive item type of thing.
Right. Yeah. That's it.
I really wanted an alternate weapon. I pitched this to Behavior when we talked about the game. I wanted an alternate weapon for the trapper, and instead of his normal knife, he just has a copy of the board game and he beats you over the head with it. They said no, we're not going to do that. Sorry.
No, we can't do that. Sag. So, I think we're gonna try to start cooling down on the stream, everyone. So get your last questions in, and we'll end the stream in 5 minutes. Brad, let me just talk to you instead of asking you questions from the chat. How are you feeling about the project right now? We're kind of almost at the tail end of the first day. Tired?
I didn't get much sleep last night. I was lying awake oh my gosh, it's in 5 hours now. 4 hours now. That was my night last night. I didn't sleep on this.
That's a really good question. Yeah. Sorry.
What's up?
Somebody asked, okay. Are the perks that are not tied to specific survivors in the game, like Spine Chiller?
Yes, they are. Spine Chiller, Slippery Meat, Premonition. All those are in the neutral perks deck, which also contains all the teachable perks together.
Right.
So yeah, so there are perks you can only get by playing the other two modes in the game, Devout and Bloodweb.
Right, because those aren't printed on any of the survivor boards.
Yeah. And typically what we've done is we've made the perks that are good on their own on the survivor boards, and then the perks that are like combo pieces or really specific skills in the general perks. So they're the kind of things that only an advanced player will discover and find use for. You won't have to worry about encountering those perks on your first game.
Right. Okay. So some more questions. I mean, somebody's asking some. How do the blood points, the deluxe blood points, look? Are they like plastic chits? Are they tokens? Are they?
I'm waiting on my prototype sample, which is supposed to come in this week. So hopefully I'll be able to show you those in time.
Yes. Awesome.
But nobody's seen them yet, so we'll see them later this week.
Right.
But they should be clear red acrylic. So they'll look like, that sort of like acrylic ice that you get, that's like those little sharp pebbles. They use them in flower vases and stuff. It'll be that kind of material, but it'll be molded into this blood point shape. Yeah.
Right. That's cool. I like that. Oh, I might.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, can I get a deluxe copy of this game? Do I have to back $99 for it?
No, Marco. You just get a deluxe copy. Don't worry.
Thank you.
We'll take care of you. It's no big deal. I gotcha.
Right. Okay, so this is a really interesting question. Can you speak to how stunning in this game works? Stunning in this game is kind of different, but not different, right? We don't have an explicit state called stunned or stunning. It's just that
we did in development a lot. We actually did do some we experimented with stunning, but we found that like survivor turns are so quick that no amount of taking that away felt good. We couldn't take away your move. We couldn't take away your action. It just felt like your turn wasn't meaningful. So we, instead, well, I guess you'll speak to what the instead is, Marco.
Right. Instead, anything that reasonably causes someone to get stunned, we just model it as they don't get to interact, right? So sometimes they still get to move, sometimes they don't get to move, but most of the time they don't get to do a thing on their turn. And so it doesn't like take it away like preemptively, because 90% of the time the character still gets to move somewhere. They just don't get to work on a gen, they don't get to heal a friend or something like that. So
and it's usually like counterplay type abilities. Like you'll do your move and then someone will be like, aha, I block you.
Right.
That's how we dealt with stuns.
Right. Or, it has to be a really big committal risky move, right? Like when somebody like, oh gosh, the perk name's escaping from me. Somebody has the ability to just go into the killer's space and then like stun the killer at the cost of their own safety and their own turn, right?
Yeah, I think that's Power Struggle.
Oh, there you go. That's Power Struggle.
It's Elodie's perk.
Yeah, Power Struggle is really good, but you're now stuck in the same space as the killer, and you just used your entire turn and a bunch of blood points to essentially accomplish nothing with your turn.
Well, to block one of their turns, which. Right. Again, survivors get 2 turns for every killer turn most of the time. So spending one of your turns to stop one of theirs is a good trade-off.
It's a good trade-off, right? But it's super risky. Now you're literally on the killer's space, right? How was it working with behavior? Good.
Behavior is really cool to work with. Like they're really awesome, and they're really excited about it. Like they love the game and they love what they're doing, and that was what really struck me about it. And I would say that. Like I said, we've worked with a lot of licensors, and behavior was really involved. Like they were really excited about board games, and they all played board games themselves. They knew what we were going for, and they played it and tested it, and gave us feedback. So it was really a lot more like collaborative than working with some of the other licensors that I've worked on in the past.
There was a lot of back and forth, and I think it's been good because it's allowed us to refine the game in such a way that it keeps the branding and that it keeps the spirit of the game alive, not just for us, because most of the time we're just going off our own experience, but also from the creators of the games themselves, right? So behavior looked at the game and they went like, yeah, this is a good representation of Dead by Daylight. So
Yeah.
that
It's
what better seal of
yeah.
approval do you get as a designer, Brad, than the people?
Exactly. Yeah. It was really cool to play with all of the directors and to see what they were, and to have their reactions, which honestly were like pretty much just like player reactions. Like we're all making jokes about, about the gameplay and having a great time with it. And
Make
it's
fun of them for
it's
like walking into a camp.
yeah, what do I say? Like, they follow all the memes too.
Yeah.
It's so it was a really great time.
Oh, I'm glad you had fun. So I think this is the last question that we'll answer here. What kind of research did you guys do to prepare for a genuine experience closely tied to the video game, Brad?
We played a lot of the video game. It's we played a lot of the video game, and on top of playing a lot of the video game, we also researched board games that had similar mechanics to what we were looking at. So we played a lot of secret movement games. We played a lot of one versus mini games, and we used all that knowledge as well to kind of see how these mechanics effectively translate into board game, so that we could take the mechanics from Dead by Daylight and translate them, according to what we saw other people doing right and wrong, so that we could make the best possible game. So we researched it on both sides.
Right.
So yeah, so a lot of play went into that, both on tabletop and on the computers.
And of course, we talked a lot to the people who make the game, who, to make sure that
Yeah,
this stays
yeah.
true, right?
Yeah, they have a lot to say about exactly what this world means and what
Right.
all the parts are. So yeah.
Right. Brad, there's actually a really good question here, and I think this is how we should cap off the show. What's the best part of making this game?
Gosh, the best part of making this game is it's gonna be when I see, like, when a group of people, or when I come across a group of people playing it and they're having a great time, like, playing this game, and making having fun, making jokes, enjoying the tenseness of it. And I'll look over at a convention or something, and I'll see that, and I'll just be like, yeah, I made that, and move on. And that's going to be the best part for me.
Okay.
Is to see that group of friends having a great time.
That's such a noble goal. Brad stole my answer, so I'm gonna give a second answer, a different answer. The best part of making this game, honestly, for me, is seeing how we were able to capture the feel of every different killer and every different survivor and make them feel super unique, right? Like,
it was a lot of fun.
yeah, that's like super fun, right? Like, how do we represent Wailing Bell? How do we represent Chainsaw? How do we represent, like, the spirit's ability to, like, disjoint body in a board game, right? Like, it's a lot of iteration went into it, and a lot of it is actually just, the first thing you think of. Obviously, the spirit would need a separate marker so that we can track where she goes when she's separated from her body and stuff like that. And then, a lot of iteration, and we end up with what the current spirit power is, which is not that, but way more spirit-y in terms of feel. So I always like that process. Yeah. I always like that process of refining a concept until we distill it down to what makes that thing feel like that thing, rather than making it just look like that thing without it feeling like it.
Yeah, and I'd like to share one more thing. Say, as far as, like, in the development and design process, what was really special for me, we had, during the last summer when we were doing the intense development of this, and we were coming into the office and playing this game for 4 or 5 hours every single day, and then going home and making a new version with changes at night. And Kier was leading the in-office testing at that time, and we had some interns come in, some people from around town, and one who came in from California, and they wanted to learn, like, what's this game design, what are we doing? And we brought them in and we showed them this game and we said, this is what we're making and this is how it's going to work. And we really all bonded over the creation of this board game with, all of us old hands in the office. And then these young people who are really excited about, about designing this game and designing video games and board games in their future careers. And for them, this is going to be their first game. I've done 20 games now, but this is going to be their very first game.
Right.
And what's it going to mean to them years down the line? I don't know, but it's a memory that I'll always hold close, sitting there in the, in the office with this group of old friends and new friends and bonding together over Dead by Daylight.
Brad, you've done it. You've done it. You've said the thing. The real board game was the friends we made along the way, Brad.
Oh, Marco. You had to do it. You had to do it.
I had to do it. Thank you all so much, everyone.
On that note, thank you all so much
for coming there. Thank you so much for being with us on the launch stream. I'm so excited. Thank you all so much for your support. We cannot stress that enough. This game would not be possible without your support, without you being here, without you pledging for your pledges. And we can't wait to get this game in your hands. Brad, what if I want to see some gameplay? I mean, I've seen your rulebook, I've seen the videos, but I want to see people actually play the game.
Yeah, so you'll have two chances. It is this very week. Jesse from Quacklope is working on a full playthrough. He did the short preview that we posted in the update. He's working on a full preview, and we're going to put that on the Kickstarter as soon as it's finished. And then I am actually going up to Seattle this Friday, and I'm going to play live with Penny Arcade on April 1st. And we're going to do a live game with the celebrity cast before a live studio audience of Penny Arcade's producers in Seattle.
I don't know if that's a studio audience. There's an audience for sure.
Studio, and people will be watching us. They'll be recording, but they're also watching.
Okay, sure.
No, but we'll be playing a live game there as well, and so you can see us play live on Friday, if not sooner, from Quackalope. So you'll have some real gameplay coming. We're also in the process of sending games out to a bunch of board game reviewers and a bunch of the Fog Whisperers from Dead by Daylight, Dead by Daylight's own community. So we're gonna do both sides of that, and you're gonna see this board game being played by real experienced reviewers and by people that only are coming in from Dead by Daylight, and you get to see both sides of that, both how the board game players perceive it and how the Dead by Daylight players perceive it, and how it merges those two together, because we really wanted to build a game that both of those people could sit down together and play. And that's what I really think this game is all about, is bringing tabletop players and video gamers together on the tabletop.
And that's Level 99 Games for you. As usual, this has been me, your host, Asian Jim, Asian Dwight, but also known as Marco DeSantos, also known as the Mechanic Critic. And with me has been Discounted Ace, or Discounted David.
As much as I wish I was David, I'm probably Ace. I hate to admit it, but yeah, probably.
You do live in the desert.
It's okay. Ace is probably my favorite survivor. So
that's fair.
All right, cool. Well, thank you all so much. Have a great evening, and thank you for being a part of the project. I can't wait to hand you a game. Well, not personally to hand you, but for a game to be in your hands later this year. So
you're right.
Look out for the updates, and I'll see you there.
Remember, everyone, happy gaming, and death is not an escape. Bye.
Happy gaming.